This college student seemed extremely lucky when his teacher kept dragging him into messy affairs. She and her student developed a so-called pregnancy of love. Clothes didn't even need changing. Yet countless times they laughed wildly together. At one point, while drunk, the teacher even smashed a bottle, threatening and forcing him to help her undress. He resisted, but in the end, powerless, he could only lie down and give in. His name was Stick, a 23-year-old student at a university in Sweden. He and his family had moved there 2 years earlier. With his messy golden hair and charming look, Stick made plenty of female students swoon. He also had a strange talent for bow and arrow fly shooting. Whenever he aimed, he always hit his target. At the start of the new school year, a female teacher arrived, coincidentally from the same hometown as Stick. Her name was Viola, a beautiful, sharp woman. Even while lecturing, she always knew what was happening in class. The students had this odd ritual, passing around one piece of gum, each chewing for 5 seconds, then storing it in a jar to continue the next day. Viola caught wind of it and immediately asked Stick to stay after class, confess his guilt, and empty his pockets. Flustered, Stick stammered nervously. Viola reached in and pulled out a piece of paper filled with lewd notes about timing and frequency of certain activities. Shocked, she confiscated the evidence and ordered Stick to clean the walls full of flies stuck there. While wiping, Stick stole glances at her pale, elegant neck, something she noticed but only smiled at. After his punishment, Stick hurried home, thrilled when his mother told him a letter had arrived from his brother. His brother had once been a boxer but had joined the war. Stick also worked part-time at a cinema, selling chocolates. That day, because of detention, he arrived late and sold nothing. In his building lived a younger girl named Lisbeth, who often brought friends over just to sit by the window and watch him. When Stick heard his brother might soon get leave, he anxiously asked when the war would end, always worrying about his safety. At night, Stick and his brother would chat endlessly about girls. When his brother left, Stick often daydreamed in class, staring at Viola's legs in her green skirt. During PE, he would look up at her window. At home, he waited under a tree for her to step out for fresh air. One day, when the class monitor had to go to the nurse's office, Viola asked for someone to accompany her to get a map. Stick volunteered. On the stairs, he accidentally loosened a screw, and Viola leaned over to help. Just then, the math teacher walked by. Startled, Viola pressed close to the wall with Stick, and whether intentional or not, he seized the chance to kiss her. To his surprise, she didn't resist, she kissed him back. Returning to class, both felt flustered but secretly thrilled. That afternoon, while other students watched planes land, Stick borrowed a bike and instead rode straight to Viola's house. Though shocked, she let him in. Afterward, she warned him to always check if her husband's car was parked outside before visiting. But soon enough, her husband unexpectedly returned home. Stick panicked, hiding behind the door and trying to sneak out, but was caught. Luckily, the husband thought Stick was just a tutoring student and didn't press the issue. From then on, their secret affair bloomed. They met whenever possible, laughing uncontrollably, whispering in class, or lying around at home together. Meanwhile, Stick's brother fought matches on the side. During one, he was badly hurt but managed to win by knockout. Stick was proud but couldn't sleep afterward, watching his brother bandaged head to toe. Restless, he snuck to Viola's again, only to nearly be discovered by her husband. Though he managed to escape, suspicion grew. Later, her husband, Frank, caught Stick wearing Viola's clothes and calmly asked him to sit without offering an explanation. Instead of anger, Frank shared his own story. Their marriage was unhappy. Just a week after their wedding, he cheated and was caught. As a businessman, he and Viola, a respected educator, chose to stay married only for appearances. Stick listened, both ashamed and sympathetic. Oddly, a strange friendship formed. Viola became Stick's lover, while Frank became his drinking buddy. But everything eventually unraveled. Frank's alcoholism worsened, drowning in despair. Stick, torn between loyalty and guilt, could only sympathize with the man, even as he continued his forbidden relationship with Viola. But Stick didn't know what to say to comfort or encourage anyone. He began spending more time with Frank, helping him tidy up, then playing soccer with the neighborhood kids. On his mother's birthday, Stick organized a party and invited the whole block. Taking advantage of the occasion, Lisbeth decided she would finally confess her feelings to Stick. She took him to her room, locked the door, and told him to close his eyes until she was ready. But Stick wasn't very excited when he saw her immature body, with barely grown curves. Embarrassed, Lisbeth quickly put her dress back on, her voice trembling as if about to cry, and told him to leave. Stick spent many days pondering after that. Meanwhile, Viola confided about her marriage. She admitted that although she and her husband lived under one roof, they led separate lives, respecting each other's privacy, including their affairs with outsiders. Frank remained the same, drinking alone, listening to sad music, unable to control his emotions, sometimes angry, sometimes crying like a child. Watching the man pour drink after drink, Stick grew concerned. One night, Stick placed a blanket over the drunken Frank to let him sleep. But Viola suddenly appeared, playfully hitting Stick on the head and calling him a girl. Stick felt uncomfortable, so he quietly left. The next day, Viola called him to the front of the class. While pretending to check his clothes, she secretly slipped him a note: "Meet me at the beach at 7:30. But Stick no longer felt the same thrill as before, asking to go to the restroom. He instead snuck to observe Lisbeth hiding in a wooden box. After class, he tossed her a crumpled note. She read it, then happily climbed into the box with him. Outside, classmates practiced the high jump, while inside, the two of them learned how to spell words together. When they came out, Lisbeth looked overjoyed and asked Stick to teach her how to pickpocket. He only smiled and hugged her, though his mind was elsewhere. Soon, Stick nearly received a letter from the front lines. It turned out his brother had been assigned to a submarine for an offshore battle. Terribly worried, Stick poured himself a drink and downed it in one gulp. His mother overheard the news on the radio and broke down crying, scolding him for keeping it from her. He quickly knelt, apologized, and tried to comfort her. That night, Lisbeth came to the cinema, but when she couldn't find him in the seats, she opened a cabinet and, to her shock, found Stick kissing the ticket girl. Though he tried to explain, Lisbeth stormed off in anger. Viola, meanwhile, spiraled into despair, alone and drunk. When Stick arrived, she immediately stripped off her shirt. But Stick only stood there silently, watching. Enraged, she smashed a bottle and threatened him, forcing him to please her. Pretending to obey, he tried to restrain her, but Viola broke free. With no other option, Stick gave up resisting and surrendered to the situation. The next day, Viola met with the principal, complaining about her troublesome student. At the end of class, she announced Stick would have to repeat the year. Furious, he chased after her for answers. In truth, Viola only wanted to pressure him into continuing their affair. But it backfired. Stick began rebelling openly. She lifted her skirt in class, flaunting her stockings, but Stick kicked over the teacher's desk in defiance. The principal immediately dragged him to the office. Warning: your grades are awful. And now you're pulling stunts? Do this again, and you're out of this school. Stick said nothing and ran back to class, searching for his grade report. He realized Viola had torn up key pages, leaving him unable to prove his innocence. He turned to Frank for help, but Frank was too drunk to understand. The next day, the principal called Stick again, but this time, it was tragic news: his brother had been killed. That evening, Stick sat in the cinema watching the same war footage over and over until an old man came to console him and helped him out of the theater. Soon after, the bodies of fallen soldiers were brought home. The army held a solemn funeral. Stick stood with his parents, grief-stricken as they bid farewell to his brother. When exam results were announced, parents filled the hall. Viola was stunned to see Stick show up. Without a word, he walked straight toward her, unzipped his pants, and shamelessly exposed himself before leaving the school for good. He carried away all the dictionaries he had once borrowed from her desk. Perhaps, after everything, he finally understood the saying, "You learn more from friends than from teachers." And that's the end of today's story. See you all in the next video. Don't forget to give me a like and subscribe. Thanks, everyone.